I just find anyone interesting. They don't have to be, famous or massively successful in something that's, well known to people. Anyone that's got a story to tell, I find interesting. I spend a lot of time talking to our clients, even when, one of my brokers is working with a client. I will tend to, I'm quite infamous, I wasn't going to say famous, infamous for just randomly calling clients that are in our, combined pipeline and just saying, hi, how are you doing? What's going on? Are you enjoying working with us? What's the plans? What are you doing long term?
Welcome to the Property Funder podcast. This is part 2 of our chat with Sam Norris of Grand Union Finance. We'll dispense with the long intro this time, but
it was really good.
It was very good.
I'm happy for you to do it again.
But Grand Union Finance has been in business now for the last 5 years, and so in part 1 we heard from Sam as to how it came into being, and I guess the plans for the future, and also a Game of Loans podcast, very successful YouTube channel, which is in a bit of a hiatus, but hopefully will come back into being. And yeah, if you ever need someone to fill the other seat and be on the other side of the screen, you feel free not to ask me. You have better options. No, of course I'd be delighted. Yeah. So you're a passionate rugby fan. Today's the day of the Lions announcement. We were actually hoping to do a bit of a live looking at the Lions squad in real time, but they're building up the drama, aren't they?
They're taking their time. Is basically what they're doing.
Is there anything you've taken from your days of playing rugby into the world of business?
Yeah, I talk about this quite a lot in terms of the comparisons between like someone who's a professional sports person versus somebody that's either sort of a business owner or someone that works in a competitive type industry like brokering, where I don't like using the word sales, but you know what I mean? In that, if you look at sports people, they work incredibly hard for a tiny little period of time, and then the rest of it is all managed rest. So I've kind of taken that as a big thing. It's so easy when you first start a business to work all the hours that God gives, and I certainly did that. Suffered from it massively. I've suffered from genuine burnout 3 times in the last 5 years, where you literally have to take a day off because you can't function properly. So certainly learned from like professional sports people who take all of that balance really, really seriously. I genuinely believe, if you want to succeed, your brain's got to be right. That's fed by the body. You got to eat right. You got to exercise. You got to sleep well. Stay hydrated. All this kind of stuff that sports people do. So yeah, I think that's probably like a big thing that I've taken from that. I don't always follow that 100%. This weekend just gone has been a great example of that, where half of it was there was no rest whatsoever. I did a 106-kilometer walk around the Isle of Wight with no sleep, which was really, really painful. And then went up to Blackpool to watch football on Monday and probably drank a little bit too much. So that was I probably went from one extreme to the other. So in theory, I did have a balanced weekend, but yeah, I'm more of a do as I say rather than I do in that regard. But yeah, I think I take that as a big thing. But I think the other thing, particularly in rugby, since the professional era, it's been known as a sport that's like quite keen on the detail, and I quite like the detail of things. I quite like analyzing. I'm a big believer in whatever you do, you can look back and take lessons. I wrote a post on LinkedIn that I posted this morning, literally about that walk and a couple of things I learned from doing that in terms of preparation and the mental strength. So everything can be analyzed, everything can be reviewed, and we do that at Grand Union. Every single quarter we have proper reviews, and we have weekly one-to-ones with everyone to check in on how we're progressing with stuff, and we talk about anything that from the tiniest little things to the biggest things. Everything. Anything to make the boat go faster, as they say, is massively important. So certainly that's something I've also learned, because I really enjoyed when I played rugby. I played at a half decent level, and it was always, I love being out on the pitch. I love training, but I also really enjoyed the theory, the analytics afterwards. how do we perform? Why did that happen? You know, we were in this part of the field and we couldn't get to that part of the field. What were the reasons for that? I really enjoy that. So I very much do the same as, you know, as in my various roles at Grand Union, with the team, checking in and seeing, you know, why certain things happen well sometimes and why they don't necessarily happen as well other times. So I love that analytical part of it. Speaking
of sports people, have you had the opportunity to do any work with sports people as clients?
Yes, a few. None that I'll name.
Of course, we've got to, you know, like a doctor, like a lawyer, client, client patient, confidentiality.
There was one that I've worked with a long time ago, and he wasn't particularly responsive, and there was a story of me telling him off across a private banking table once for being on his phone. It's funny because if I
can't imagine he was used to, particularly if they're quite wealthy and quite famous, then they're not always used to that, are they?
No, not at all. Probably why I don't do it as much anymore. But
I'm assuming footballer, not rugby player.
No, he was a footballer. Yeah. We don't like aim for, you know, to work with these sorts of people, but they do inevitably come along. A lot of them, you know, they're investing their money a bit more wisely nowadays, and bricks and mortar has always been deemed as a really good investment. So you do come across, you know, these people. I find that
Avamore's got at least one footballer client at the moment. Yeah,
I just find anyone interesting. They don't have to be, you know, famous or massively successful in something that's, you know, well known to people. Anyone that's got a story to tell, I find interesting. I spend a lot of time talking to our clients, even when, you know, one of my brokers is working with a client. I will tend to, I'm quite infamous. I wasn't going to say famous, infamous for just randomly calling clients that are in our, you know, combined pipeline and just saying, hi, how are you doing? What's going on? Are you enjoying working with us? What's the plans? What are you doing long term? And having, you know, sometimes an hour-long conversation with them just to find out more about them and what they're trying to do long term and feed any nuggets in that I can. I find those kind of conversations the best part of the job.
I actually think that's genius. I really do. I mean, we had like talking about COVID, like mid 2020, you know, the funding, like the people that fund us, right, fund the entire lending market, like everything kind of ground to a halt. I'm sure you'll kind of remember it. And, you know, so like, we didn't have, you know, we had some capital available to lend. We actually were very proud that we managed to lend in every month of 2020. And I'm not sure that could have been, these were not big sums of money, I might add, but we had capital, you know, because we still had private capital. So we're still able to, you know, the institutional market was maybe closed. But we said to the salespeople, look, this is a brilliant opportunity to get out there and actually go and get out. I say get out there, but like, you know, get on the phone and start talking to brokers. You don't normally have time to speak to you because they haven't got the caseload at the moment to actually do anything. But just get on the phone with them and don't. And they're like, well, we haven't got any product to sell. I said, fuck the products. You don't need
have a conversation. To have a human to human conversation.
Yeah, you get to learn something about them. People want to talk about them. Like that's the reason why I was saying what you're talking about with genius. So people want to talk about themselves. You know. I always say to my RMs, and especially the new ones, I said, just get them talk. He said, don't lead with the products. Never talk about the products. Lead with, tell me about your business. What are your plans for your business? Who are your clients? What are you looking to, you know, what is your client profile? Which lenders do you typically like to work with? What do you find what are the pros? What are the cons? Blah, blah, blah. Let them talk about themselves. And then, because what they'll do is people, generally speaking, once you've spoken about yourself for a long period of time, we're sort of socially wired, unless you're kind of a bit neurodiverse, to go, oh, I've talked about myself a lot now, but tell me about you.
Yeah.
They're going to lean in. Whereas if you go and lead with, well, this is us and this is what we do. So you picking up the phone to the clients and go and getting them to yak about themselves for an hour. I bet they come off the phone going, oh, that's Sam. What a great guy.
Do you know what it is? It's probably more for selfish reasons than anything else. I genuinely enjoy those calls. I actually have a thing where if I'm stressed, if I'm like having a bad day or something, that's generally when I'll tend to lean into that, because it's something that I know I have in my living room. I have a coffee table and I tend to do like a figure of 8 walk around it. And during COVID, I actually did 20,000 steps without leaving my flat one day, which I was good. That was a bit
very
concerning.
Compliant fitness. Yes.
Yeah, I have to do it if we got to go for a walk. And I just, we go off on tangents and we talk for ages. And I get something out of it, because I enjoy those conversations. But secondly, it's really, really good, I think, anyway. Any business should be constantly looking for feedback. I'm quite, again, infamous rather than famous maybe for, when we have completions with clients that it's like the first time we've worked with them, I'll usually call them and say, look, tell us all the things you didn't like about working with us. What were the most frustrating times? Was there anything that we could have done differently that would have made this easier for you? And that's where we get our best ideas. We very early on, a couple of people back to back said that they found it infuriating how many things they had to sign. So it was like straight away, great, Adobe sign, bosh, done. And we make those changes as a result, because ultimately, as we said, you're only going to build a business by giving consistently good service or amazingly better service than they've received by anyone else to clients constantly. And that's what we aim to do. And when I always say to people, look, I think we're good at what we do, but we've got so much further to go. And I don't compare myself to anyone else in the market. I don't go, oh, we're so much behind this company. We're just behind where we want to be. And we want to be, if we achieve what we want to achieve, we will be the best just because we will be the best, because no one else will be able to live with us. And that's the way that I look at it. And again, you go back to the rugby thing. As a Saracens fan, I think that's always been the philosophy there, which is that if we just become amazing in every single part of our game, then no one else will be able to live with us. And up until recently, that's been pretty much what's happened. And that's, I think that's certainly a mentality that we have. And I think all businesses should have, really.
Yeah, well, I quite agree. Yeah, it's that Sir Dave Brailsford marginal gains theory, right? It's, can you be 0.1 or, like if you're 0.1% better every single day, that compounds over time.
And that's why I say to the team, look, bring stuff to me. If you see a problem, whether it's something that you think is stupid or something that's a big issue or anything in between, bring it up. We have a Zoom meeting with everyone every single Friday, and part of that is we go around and everyone has to share something, a problem they found, a solution that they found for it. I quite like, there's a guy called Dan Martell who uses a formula where if someone's got a problem, he asks them to come up with 3 potential solutions for it, and then gets them to pick the one that's most likely to succeed, and then says, great, go and do that. And I tend to use that quite a lot as well with the team, with those kind of things. So we're constantly, like I said, it's a very solution-based mindset. Problems will occur every single day. It's how we deal with them, and can we not only find a solution for that one thing, but can that solution then be broadened across multiple parts of what we do to make everything consistently better. So again, it's going back to what we said previously, constantly reevaluating what we're doing, constantly getting feedback. The quicker the feedback loops we can get, it's one of the reasons why I set Grand Union up to be able to handle volume, because the more cases we do, the shorter the feedback loop is. The shorter the feedback loop is, the quicker we can make improvements, and the quicker we can move towards where we want to hit. I'm a very impatient person. Like I don't want to sit around and be where we are forever. I know in my mind, I've got quite a clear vision of what this company looks like when it's achieved what I want it to achieve. And I'd rather do that in 5 years than 10, put it that way.
I guess one of the ways you're going to get there is through the use of technology. How are you using technology to help you scale? Yeah,
we're not using it anywhere near as much as I want to do, but we are limited at the moment because of our setup. But we certainly have probably the clearest framework that I've ever worked within in terms of our sales process and how we do things. We have email and text message automation built into our CRM system. Again, this all comes back down to how much, give the client 10 times more communication and information than they were expecting. And that also goes for third parties, solicitors, agents, all that kind of stuff as well. So we have all that kind of stuff built in. We are working on potentially using some form of AI to assist with various different parts of the business, which will obviously help not only the clients but the brokers and the team as well. But at the same
will
time,
that be off the shelf, or will that be something you built bespoke?
Probably a bit of both. I think at the moment, most AI technology that most companies are using is probably sort of like ChatGPT based or something similar based. So it's got the foundation of that, and then it's something that was built on top of it. So it'll probably be something along those kind of lines. But again, I constantly just think about efficiency. How can we get from A to B quicker than we currently are? Because ultimately, I've told a few people this recently. I went on holiday to the Maldives, and we had one of those little villas that sits over the sea. And I was the little plunge pool, and my missus is laying there reading a book, and I was sitting on the side of this little plunge pool on my phone. And after 2.5 hours, she turned to me, she went, "Sam, what are you doing?" And I went, "Do you really want to know what I'm doing?" And she's like, "Yeah, because A, your back is really red, and B, I just, like you've been in the zone." And what I was doing was I was using ChatGPT to figure out how you could buy a house with a mortgage in 24 hours. That's what I was actually doing, because I'm so like, I have a bit of an OCD when it comes to efficiency. Like, just how quick can we do these things? Why I constantly push back on solicitors and on lenders, not in a negative way, not in like a you're crap at your job way, in a just give me a genuine reason why we're doing this. Why does this have to happen? Could we do this instead that would be quicker, that would make everything more efficient? And some lenders are much, much, much better at taking that feedback than others. Solicitors are sometimes, some of them are much better at taking that feedback than others, but I also expect it back as well. I want people to tell me, why are you doing this? Good question. That's a really good question. Why are we doing this? The word why is thrown about within our company so often. So I'm just really passionate about efficiency and creating systems and processes that allow us to do our job so much better than we already are. And, a lot of that hopefully will then benefit the entire industry. I don't just look at it as just a Grand Union thing. I look at it as an industry-wide thing. How can we build houses quicker? How can we buy houses quicker? How can we solve problems quicker? That's what AI, I think, is going to really help stimulate over the next probably decade, is just increasing efficiency and probably removing some of the human error. But at the same time, I'm such a big fan of human work as well. I think that there are sometimes processes can be put in place that actually a human being would be better doing.
Yeah.
So
that's why actually the perfect collaboration of human and AI is probably the model for the future, right? Exactly.
And that's where I think it's going. With like anything, when any new technology comes along, generally what happens is you see a massive snap in that direction of let's just over rely on this, and then you pull it back a little bit, and then you get that nice like equilibrium of human and technology working together, which is where I think this is going to end up.
Yeah, you get that sweet spot. I mean, you look at you talked about how to buy a house in 24 hours, right?
I still have that chat on my phone.
I'm to be honest with you, like I actually think I've sort of crapped on about this multiple times across multiple forums. At the end of the day, like I do think we are getting to the point where that conveyancing process, whether it's home buying or whether it's buying a rental investment or whatever, we're going to look back at how we do things now and we'll go, why the fuck did we ever do it that way? I mean, the horse I always get on is searches, particularly like local searches. Why does it take
so long?
So long?
And if you remove that aspect from it, and obviously look, lots of lenders now, obviously, as you know, will just chuck on an indemnity insurance policy on top.
Certainly for a bridge,
to remove that aspect, because it's just ridiculous. And there is definitely, and this is where I think as a not to get too probably political into it, but this is where probably as a country we fail ourselves a little bit, because I think bureaucracy is probably one of our biggest enemies in this country. I'm mega proud of the fact that, and I say this all the time, I think from a banking and a lending perspective, we have one of the strongest and most secure lending and banking systems in the world, if not the number one. And we as a nation should be mega, mega proud of that. And again, it comes back to that security makes us good to invest in, we're sound.
Rule of law, land registry, all that good stuff, right?
Exactly, right. But at the same time, it's come back to this balance. We've got to find a balance between that. And when you've got these levels of bureaucracy that just mean, I was talking to somebody the other day that was doing a commercial to residential conversion, and they counted up that it had to go through 24 different departments within the planning office. Like what, like why is that even a thing? Why is that not even a thing? Surely with planning, it should just be a tick box operation. And that's something that's massively slowing us down. We've been behind on trying to build property for decades. We've never, ever, ever hit the targets that we've set ourselves. And it's just, it's laughable now. It becomes a thing on the news, isn't it? Oh, this new politician has set this stupid goal for how many properties that they will, or how many houses they want to build, because it's never going to happen. And they know it's never going to happen until there's mass changes to the way that we actually do that. And I think this government promised a lot of that. And I really do genuinely, I have no political affiliation. I really genuinely do hope this government solve or move towards solving this planning issue where we can free things up. Look, you and I will benefit massively from that, because our clients will be able to build more and we'll be able to do more business with them. But even on the lending side, like, from a mortgage perspective, it's still so difficult to get a mortgage on a prefab house. Like, why is this not the norm? Why are all houses not just prefab houses? Why are we not just knocking these up, getting them through planning? And if we did those two things just slightly differently, we incentivize the lending market to take risks on those kind of properties. We streamline the planning to ensure that these kind of things can be done a lot quicker. We get rid of the idiocracy of the searches. We use smart contracts for conveyancing. We do all of these things. We put all these pieces of the puzzle together, and suddenly we will hit those targets and they will become massively, massively realistic. Again, when you've got that solution-based mentality, then anything's possible. And that's just stuff I've come up with off the top of my head. And there must be loads of other little mini tiny parts of that operation that could be changed to make these processes happen a lot quicker. So it can be done. There just doesn't seem to be the inclination or maybe the brain power to do it at the moment. I
think there's an element of incentive, isn't there? There's just not enough incentive in the government to.
No one gets paid a bonus for hitting the targets that they hit. Like, surely that's what how MPs should be paid. No, like anyone, if you've got a target, if you don't hit it, you don't get paid as much.
No,
simple.
Yeah, you can make a strong argument that certain MPs, Prime Minister, love him or hate him, he probably isn't paid enough money for the work for the job that he does.
Yeah. But he knows what's coming. He knows what's coming afterwards.
Okay. Yeah.
I think that's the reason why they get into
it. We can. There's certain former prime ministers who've done very well with their gigs with the. To the extent that they now have foundations, so we certainly can we certainly know where that's all about. I was actually thinking about incentives, and I don't know. Do you know the story about what happened when I think in the 1800s in India, what the British Raj tried to do to eradicate the scourge of too many snakes.
I think I have heard this, but remind me, because I can't remember the punchline.
This is the power of incentive. So there was there were too many snakes in British ruled India. So the Raj introduced a bounty system where if you whereas if you brought in if you found a snake and you killed it, you'd get paid per snake. And so it's just like the perfect example of incentivizing people. The problem was that the total number of snakes didn't go down; it went up, because what happened was people started to farm snakes. They'd farm snakes just so that they could kill them and then get their bounty payment from the local government. But all it serves to do is it just shows that incentives work.
Incentives do work, but that's a very Freakonomics kind of story. I don't know if you've ever read the book.
I have read Freakonomics, both of them.
And it's it's the thought process of that sometimes the obvious solution won't actually work.
Yeah.
And that's a great example, of that happening. And I think that's what we maybe lack a little bit just in general in the world is that Freakonomics solution based mindset. And thinking, right, okay, well, let's actually, and I can't remember where this came from. It might have been from that book. And I speak to my team about this a little bit, which is I say, imagine what you want to happen has already happened, and then work backwards to figure out how it did happen.
Yeah. It's a genius. It's absolute genius. Like it's exactly the right way of thinking. Arnaud Loiseau, one of our podcast guests, he talks about where he wants to be at when he's 70. Like what is the position? What does his life look like when he's 70? And then he works backwards from where he is today.
Reverse engineering.
Yeah.
And then you figure it out. There's I can't remember who told this. I feel this is an Alex Hormozy one, where his friend wanted to, he'd split up from a long-term partner or got divorced or something. And it was time to get back out there. So he said, okay, well, get back out there. What's stopping you? And he said, well, actually, I need to probably get on a dating app, maybe, is what I need to do next. He goes, cool. Well, what's stopping you doing that? He goes, I don't feel comfortable with my appearance at the moment. Okay, well, what's making you not feel comfortable with your appearance? He goes, I probably need a haircut. Awesome. That's your next step. Go and get a haircut. That takes you to that next step. Then you feel comfortable with the next thing. Then you feel comfortable with the next thing. So if you reverse engineer what it is that, like, the absolute next step that you need to take. And again, this all comes back round to our philosophy at Grand Union in how we do everything, which is what is something that we could do. Like, if we need to achieve this, let's work it back to what is the thing that we could do right, like today or within the next 24, 48 hours to take us towards that. What is the next step in going there? And I think that's, and this is the conversations we have with our clients all the time. When I first speak to any client, again, you talk about talking about themselves, and people enjoy that. It's good for us as well to understand, what they actually want to try and achieve. You ask them, what's the big goal? What does this look like when it's done? When are you going to be satisfied? What are you trying to aim for? And they'll suddenly start thinking about that and talking about that. And then I can help them, or my team can help them. We work backwards to, okay, well, you've just come to me because you want to buy this property, because you want to renovate it and refinance it and rent it out. You want to build a portfolio, but by doing that, you're going to limit your ability to get to the point at which your portfolio has been built. You're better off building a cash reserve first. So start flipping properties, start building that cash reserve up, because then you'll be able to more quickly achieve what you're looking to do. So it's about trying to think outside the box. And I think that's where I try and position us as well as educators. You said in that really lovely intro about the education side of what we do. We're not just sitting there as human calculators. We're not just sitting there as you do this job. I've come to you because I need a bridging loan. We will analyze that and go, do you need a bridging loan? Do you need this type of finance? Is this strategy right for you? We'll try and add a layer of the onion around that advice. That's a small A advice rather than a big A advice, as to what they should be doing. And I always say to them, the reason I'm telling you this, the reason I'm having this conversation, the reason I'm going into this level of detail is I have a vested interest in you being really successful. Because if you're really successful, you're a much more valuable client to us. So even if I was really horribly selfish and that's the only thing I cared about was making money, which of course it isn't, then the direction's still aligning, the journey's still aligning, because I need you to be as successful as possible. Anything I can offer you to help you achieve that, I will do. And obviously at the moment, sometimes that might be referring them to a third party that can help them with something that we can't, but hopefully in the future, we'll be able to, cover a lot of those more tertiary services as well. But yeah, it's something I massively encourage in the team, is thinking outside the box with the clients, and not just being that, right, yes, you need to, remortgage this property. Let's just do that for you. Let's talk to you about your wider circumstances and be a bit more holistic.
Yeah. Has there ever been any danger where your initial consult / therapy session means that they sell all their worldly possessions and go become a Buddhist monk or something?
I don't think that's really what most of our clients are aspiring to do, which is very, very useful. Certainly, there have been numerous occasions where I'm going to say something that other brokers might be listening to this and go, you're a knob.
I think we've established you're not that bothered about that.
Yeah, I'm really not. If some clients, if they gone to another broker rather than us, they would have done a deal that we said don't do. Because I would much rather, just like I used that example last night, I'd much rather say to a client that this isn't a great deal. One of the things we do straight away is we use a poor lender's calculator on their website, because it's really good at spitting out some quick numbers for us that we are probably going to mimic on our own website at some point soon. We just jump on a development finance calculator, because I just want to very, very quickly determine the profit on cost, because that's such a key, quick way of determining, is this a good deal? And we had one the other day. I felt terrible. I was on with Chanel, one of my brokers, and this is a client. She'd been on a course to a very famous property educator who had told her that the world was at her feet and she could do anything. And
I'm sure didn't charge £10,000
probably more than that, I'd imagine. But no, joking aside, she'd spent the last 6 months desperately trying to find this HMO conversion project that she was looking at. She was very excited when we got on the call. I shared my screen, and Chanel said to me that as I was going through the figures and I was talking to her through it, obviously Chanel had seen what was at the bottom of the screen before I did. And it was actually minus 3% profit on cost. But I was going through and saying, this is why we put this number in here. And I'm explaining everything. And then I've got to the bottom and I've just gone, oh, bugger. And then it was kind of this weird silence where she was like, so what do we do now? I said, well, number one, I don't think anyone will lend you this money because the deal doesn't work and we need to see 20-25%. Sometimes maybe a bit less than that for a good deal. But, if there's no profit in it, these lenders aren't gonna want to lend you anyway. And I said, you shouldn't want to do this. This is basically you're going to lose money on this deal. This is what this calculator is very, very quickly establishing. And she was distraught. She looked like she was about to cry. It was horrible. But she didn't do the deal, and it was the right thing to do. Even if we could have got it funded, it just wouldn't have been the right thing to do. And I think that this is another thing I say to the clients. I'd say to our my team is, just don't do anything short-termist. Don't do anything short-term that's going to upset you long-term, because that's just not the way to do it. Don't be transactional. Don't just think I need to add something to my figures this month. I'd much, if they've given the right advice and they have a terrible month, I'm not going to be on their back. And we don't do that either. All my brokers set their own targets based on what they want to achieve. We go through what their annual goals are in terms of the holidays they want to go on, the cars they want to buy, the anything else they want to do. Matt has ambitions this year of buying his first flip project. So, we work out how much these things are going to cost, and we work out KPIs on a monthly basis and a weekly basis of what's going to allow them to achieve them. And I just hold them to account of what they have said that they want to do. So again, this comes back to this whole, actually creating an environment where people feel really valued and supported. There's no sales managers here that's shouting down their neck, but I think it's really important for them to, that yes, they've got their ambitions, they've got their drive, they want to hit certain targets, they want to make certain amounts of money, and this industry is lucrative, but at the same time, that never supersedes doing the right thing. One of our little internal mottos again is, the right way is always the right way. So yeah,
doing the right thing is always the right thing as well.
Exactly. And that will, if you do the right thing every day, it will all even itself out at the end.
This podcast is sponsored by Avamore Capital. Avamore Capital is a development and bridging lender based in London, but lending all over England and Wales, lending on projects from £250,000 all the way up to £25 million on bridging, development, refurb and part complete developments. Please visit www.avamorecapital.com to find out more. Let's take a little bit of a gear change. We're kind of coming, we talked about the cut in the base rate in part one. There are some commentators who think rates could go as low as 3.5%, which for me, I think is kind of where it'll probably stay for the medium term. What trends, ignoring the interest rates for a second, what are the trends, the themes you think are going to continue to grow and build for the rest of 2025 and into next year?
I think investors and developers have to be a little bit more creative than they once were. We went through a real phase, the term BRR became like the buzzword in property investing, where you buy, you renovate, you refinance. I think there's loads of other R's that they can add on to
I always ran out of, I wasn't sure exactly how many R's it was.
It depends how cold you are, I think. It's just, but as how many R's you get. But that worked for the longest period of time. And we go back to that property education thing that we touched on very, very minorly, but there are a lot of people that are educating now that lived through that amazing period of 10 years or so coming off the back of the credit crunch, where you could buy something, you could renovate it because the cost of labor and materials wasn't as high as it is now. You could renovate it, you could recycle all your cash by just buying, a pretty rubbish single unit property, and then, renting it to a family. It's just, so many people have built big portfolios off the back of that. You just can't do that anymore because, as I've already alluded to, cost of materials, cost of labor, the disparity between a property on a street that's been bad, in a bad state versus a great state is not as wide as it once was. Back to getting, the availability of cash as well has stimulated that, of lending, has stimulated that. So I think investors just need to be more creative, which is why we see now, and I know that you guys are the same in terms of the trends you see, the BRR model, it's just a BRR model, but expanded. It's turning a house, instead of into a nicer single unit, it's a 3 apartments, or a house of multiple occupancy, or a commercial unit that's converted into, a nice block of flats or something like that. So it's just being a little bit creative. That comes with some more risk. I think a lot of investors and developers look at those kind of projects and go, well, they're higher risk. I might need to get planning. I might need to go through the PD process or whatever it might be. Maybe the barrier to entry is higher because lenders generally want to see more experience to lend you on those, or otherwise the cost of funds is going to be too high. But they're ultimately where the market, where borrowers need to be targeting, is where can they add that additional value. There's a guy I know, Jason Patterson, who he likes to buy flats that have short leases that need renovation, and he could also change the layout to incorporate an additional bedroom. That's a great example of somebody that's thinking outside the box to go, right, how can we squeeze as much value out of this as possible? How can we add so much value to this that I can pull all that money back out again? So it's, again, back to that solution mindset. Okay, that project, that type of strategy doesn't quite work as well as it used to anymore. How do I do something different to still get the end result? And I think that's where the property investment market is going. It's being creative to add more value.
We'll have to talk about the short leases outside of this, because we actually did a short lease bridge yesterday. Yeah. So
I have a story about a short lease I can share with you.
Okay, let's go. Yeah, we've got just about got enough time. Yeah.
This is literally, so this is the worst deal I've ever done. It was horrible, and it's the closest I've ever come as well to breaking my integrity. It was a property sourcer in London brought this client to me. They found this beautiful 3-bedroom apartment in Marylebone that had 9 years left on the lease.
We weren't that short lease.
Yeah, and I managed. So I didn't listen to the client because I just assumed I knew what she was going to do, and I went off and found amazing terms, bridging loan. Based on the open market value on completion, with the the Section 42 reassigned and the lease extended to 99 years, and it meant that she basically wouldn't have to put hardly any money into the deal at all.
Amazing.
She's going to end up with an amazing asset. I was so proud of myself. The terms as well were just dirt cheap. This was back in the day when certain lenders were doing like 0.55, 0.6% a month. I was so happy with myself. Went back to her and she turned around and she was like, "Oh no, Sam, you misinterpreted. I'm going to buy it, and my daughter's just going to live in there while she's at university, and then I'm going to give it back to the freeholder." And I was like, "What?" And I called the sourcer, and I was like, "I just want to buy this. Like, I want to buy this. I can do this so that I wouldn't have to put any money in on my own, but I just can't do it. My integrity won't let me do that." And we bridged it for her. And she basically, I said to the bridging lender, I said, "Look, this is what she wants to do. Are you comfortable with that?" And they said, "Yeah, we'll just keep re-bridging her out of it." And I said, "Look, I'm comfortable now to leave that." We did the deal. I'm not even sure if we actually ever completed on it. I don't think we did. I think she decided to pull out or something in the end, but that was the way we were going. And that was demoralizing for me. That killed me.
Well, I think we've established by now. Yeah, you're a man of high virtue. So yeah, but yeah, I can understand why that'd be so frustrating. I'd even have maybe tried to do a deal with her and say, right, well, when your daughter's done,
Yeah,
give it to me.
Give it to me. Yeah, that actually, in hindsight, maybe I should have done that. Yeah, I clearly didn't think outside the box as well as I would have done now.
Yeah, your problem solving's definitely got better.
Yeah, that was horrible.
What are you seeing in terms of landowner expectations? You know, particularly say the commercial to resi conversions. Are you starting to see some creative solutions being put in place with landowners who maybe want a bit more for their land than developers are willing to put down on day one?
Yeah. I think, and this is a positive of the sort of property education sort of market that's grown massively in the last decade or so, is that I think they are fueling creativity in how you acquire property and how you can do deals with vendors. You know, doing vendor finance, doing JVs with vendors, doing purchase lease options. You know, all of these kinds of things are fantastic because they ultimately solve problems. Because there is, at the end of the day, there is a vendor that needs to sell something. Most of the time they need to sell rather than want to, but they often need also to have a certain price tag on that. A lot of it is not necessarily always just down to expectation. I think we've got to a point in the market where expectation has been, dropped down to probably roughly the right place. I think the biggest reason at the moment why deals aren't stacking is just the cost of materials and labor. That's the biggest issue, I think, right now. But yeah, a lot of the time, vendors won't know what is possible, and it's up to our clients, the borrowers, to sort of figure that out and work with them. So I am seeing a lot more of that kind of stuff. And obviously, look, as well, a lot of our borrowers, a lot of our clients are, they're growing. They're in the growth stage. They're not in that consolidation stage where they're just sitting on a portfolio or they're sitting on a development company or something like that. They are actively growing. They're looking to do more deals. I've got a client at the moment where we've got 3 deals going through at the moment with him, and he called me and said, I've had 2 more offers accepted. I'm like, you don't have any more money. Where is this coming from? But they want to leverage. They understand the value of leverage. And they're willing to be creative to get deals done, and we're seeing a hell of a lot of that. They want to put the least amount of money in themselves, the least amount of skin in the game, so that they've got that opportunity. They don't want to lose that opportunity cost of not having those funds available for something else that might pop up. Because I love these aggressive clients. I always try and give them the advice of just try to be as risk averse as you can be. But at the same time, look, I also love the ambition. I love the drive. I love the creativity of trying to get 5 deals done at the same time. We had a client the other day, had 3 offers accepted on the same day, all of which had been sitting there for over 6 months. And she was petrified, but we sorted her out and she's happy. So
how do you find lenders, particularly development lenders, approaches to these more complex JV arrangements? Because not every lender, particularly banks, but not a lot of lenders don't like that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think, look, you know as well as anyone, it's all about the exit. How likely is it that the borrower, that the lender is going to get their money back with the interest that's been agreed? It's as simple as that. And I think that's one of the big jobs of a broker is if we can create that story and show that clear line of sight, then I think lenders are more amenable to these sorts of things. Obviously, any lender, any funding line sitting behind a lender is going to be concerned about certain things. But if we can, de-risk it in as many ways as possible, and I think, again, as I said, I think that's truly one of the jobs of a broker, is to try and de-risk a project for a lender as much as possible. I think I just think in general, not necessarily just about what we're talking about, but just in general, I think bridging lenders, development finance lenders are becoming more, at the same time, more responsible in their lending, but also more understanding and more flexible at the same time. There seems to be a real feeling at the moment that the good players in the lending market are so keen to lend. They really want to do deals, and they really want to work with us and with our clients. It's great. We're in a nice purple patch, I think, at the moment, where the stars are kind of all aligned, and everyone wants to do the same sort of thing. And you guys have been phenomenal in some of the deals that we've done recently, and in some of the flexibility that you've offered. Other lenders are doing similar things in that regard. So I think it's really positive. It's a really positive market at the moment from a lending point of view. There are some of the some lenders that are just sticking to, and they haven't evolved over the last 12 months, but they will inevitably get left behind. But I think the ones that are keen to work are finding ways to work and to get money out the door, which is all we can ask for, really, isn't it?
No, absolutely. We've got just a short moment of time left, so I thought it's time to sort of go with the look at the closing tradition. What bit of advice or self-talk would you give your younger self, knowing what you do now?
I would say cut your teeth quicker, get in front of more clients quicker. I spent a large proportion of my early years, as I said to you before, sitting there twiddling my thumbs because I didn't have people to speak to. I'd picked the wrong choice of place to work. I had too much confidence. I should have, sucked up my pride, gone and found, an estate agent to work for probably, and sit in the back and just smash through, loads and loads and loads of work, and really just cut my teeth and really, expand my knowledge and gain experience a lot quicker. And I think I would have been further down the line. But yeah, apart from that, look, I'm happy where I am. So any change, any little whispers I would have put in that little boy's ear could mean that I'm not where I am. So, on that side of things, I probably wouldn't say anything. But if I had to, that's probably what I'd say.
Yeah, love it. Well, Sam, it's been a pleasure, long overdue, as we've established, and the conversation will continue outside when we go and look at the Lions the Lions selection. If you can remind everyone where they can find you on the internet, and maybe talk up the return of the Game of Loans podcast as well. We're going
to hopefully improve the quality of that. That probably won't be till the back end of this year. But you can listen to all of the episodes on any platform that you listen to your podcasts on. Just type in Game of Loans and you'll find it. I will also start posting more videos on YouTube, I promise, but you can type in my name into YouTube, Sam Norris, and I should be the first person to come up, although there is a superbike driver that sometimes comes up slightly higher. Instagram at the Sam Norris, LinkedIn again, just my name, Sam Norris, so you can find me there. If you send me a DM on Instagram, I will 100% reply. But if you just want to send me an email, it's sam@grandunion.finance.
Brilliant. And as you all know by now, my name is Michael Dean. I'm at property_funder. You can also get in touch with the show sponsor and the business that I co-founded, which is Avamore Capital, www.avamorecapital.com. We look forward to hearing from you in due course. Without further ado, thanks very much to Sam. Thanks very much to the production team, and we'll talk to you again on the next one. Cheers and bye-bye.